Joining us now is Michael Sandberg, who has worked in the business intelligence and analytics industry for more than 30 years. And his mantra that he preaches to everyone or anyone who will listen is to get business partners or clients excited about their data. He's also the author of the popular data visualization blog called Data Viz Blog. He's previously held business intelligence positions at General Motors, American Express, AAA Insurance, and the Walt Disney Company. So, Michael, I'll turn it over to you to get started.
Good afternoon, everybody, or good evening, depending on where you are. I feel very honored today to be able to be following all these very creative, talented people that have just spoke. My name is Mike Sandberg. I am the data architect for the city of Glendale, Arizona. My topic is the rise of the citizen data scientist. Okay, let me touch this screen. So in this session, we'll discuss first off what a citizen data scientist is. Then we're going to discuss the importance of a citizen data scientist in regards to business organizations or as well as within our communities. For example, us being a city government, we have a lot of citizens that are interested in exploring our data. So, but before I get started, I'm going to be using some terms like descriptive and diagnostic and predictive and prescriptive. So before I do that, I want to tell you a bedtime story. So there's a lioness who hires a data scientist who just happens to be a fox to help her find prey. The fox had access to a rich data warehouse, which consisted of all the data about the jungle, all of its creatures, and events happening in the jungle. So on the first day they met, the fox presented the lioness with a report summarizing where he found all of her prey for the last 6 months. This is an example of descriptive analytics. Then the lioness used this to decide where to go hunting for her prey. This is an example of diagnostic analytics. Next, the fox estimated the probability of finding a given prey at a certain place and time, and he did this using machine learning techniques. This is called predictive analytics. Then the fox identified all the routes in the jungle for the lioness to take. It would take the minimal effort for her to find the prey. In other words, the shortest path to get to that prey. And that's referred to as predictive analytics or optimization. Finally, based on all these models, the fox had trenches dug at various points in the jungle so that the prey would just come along and fall in these trenches and be caught automatically. This is referred to as automation. So basically, Gartner has, and a lot of different companies have this. It's the Gartner analytic ascendancy model, where basically you start with descriptive analytics, what happened, diagnostic analytics, why did it happen, predictive analytics, what will happen, and prescriptive analytics, how can we make it happen. And if you look at the chart here, you can see as you go up the scale, value increases. However, the difficulty in getting that information or extracting that information becomes more difficult. We start from raw information at the bottom, more hindsight, to optimized information where we have foresight. Okay, so with all that said, according to Gartner, 40% of data scientist tasks will be automated by the year 2020. So that's about a little over a year away, which will result in increased productivity and broader use of data and analytics by citizen data scientists. Okay, so I said citizen data scientists. So what is a citizen data scientist? Per Gartner, and this is a direct quote, a person who creates or generates machine learning models that use advanced diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive capabilities. We just learned those from our bedtime story, but whose primary job function is outside the field of statistics and analytics. Now, if we look at the little model I have on the right, so what are some of the characteristics of a citizen data scientist? First, they create or generate models. They're typically not a member of IT or an analytics team. They're more aligned with the lines of business. They're typically subject matter experts. Like in our case, we have people that are subject matter experts in budget and finance and parks and rec, and facilities, things like that. They're more focused on business questions. They typically don't have any formal statistics or data analytics education. However, they can easily apply advanced analytics to answer their questions. So why are there citizen data scientists? Well, I believe Gartner introduced this term back in 2015. They basically bridge the gap between mainstream self-service analytics, which are typically used by non-technical users, and the advanced analytic techniques that are used by data scientists. But they now are able to perform more sophisticated analysis that would have previously required more expertise, enabling them to deliver advanced analytics without having skills that characterize data scientists. And I show on the right some of the skills or some of the tasks that data scientists typically do. As you can see, they spend a lot of their time cleansing and organizing data and collecting data sets and some other tasks. So what is driving the need for citizen data scientists? First off, more organizations are becoming data-driven. Years ago, when I started in the profession, everything was process-driven. We have switched that over the years, and organizations are more data-driven. Technology and automation have changed. Years ago, you had to be a really highly skilled technical person to be able to do analytics and such, and we now have tools like Tableau and Tableau Prep, where we're able to, where non-technical people can develop their own data visualizations. They can connect the data, manipulate it, and the other reason is because of the data scientist being a unicorn. And so what do I mean by a data scientist is a unicorn? So typically a data scientist has skills in 3 key areas. Typically computer science, the second would be math or statistics, and the third is subject matter expertise. I just wrote a paper that'll be coming out soon where I talk about human-centric skills too, such as being able to communicate, being able to persuade, data ethics, things like that. But basically in the middle of all this Venn diagram is that unicorn. And data scientists are hard to find. They're typically very expensive to hire. Typically in a company, executive leadership is usually tasking them with things to do, so other people down the chain have a harder time getting time or access to them to do things for them. Now let's talk about a little bit about the traits of the citizen data scientist. We kind of talked about this a couple minutes ago. They have a contextualized vision of the organization. They understand what's happening in the organization. They have proven application of analytic techniques to business problems. They understand how to address and solve business problems. They have an appetite related to business priorities. They know what the business needs done, what their pain points are, and things they want to do. They've been around the block and have connections. They have a unique perspective, being part of the business. They're able to justify business value. So when they have to go in front of leadership to ask for money or ask for resources, they can talk it that much better. And typically they're involved hands-on in multiple analytic areas and activities. So how did we evolve to a citizen data scientist? Well, there were a couple opposing influential trends. We have now larger volumes of data, a more variety of data and velocity. We're getting more and more data every day, which gives us extreme growing complexity. But however, we have better tools, Tableau, Power BI, Alteryx, Tableau Prep and such, and users are more sophisticated. It isn't like the old days where IT did all this and they basically presented things to the business. The business are very actively involved in looking at their own data. So we have this growing pool of savvy analysts. The result, we have the evolution of the role of the citizen data scientist. They're business-oriented problem solvers. They may be less technical in the traditional sense, but they're more in tune with the application of algorithms to identify opportunities. So what are the priorities of a citizen data scientist? They need to be more data aware. Us folks in IT need to have different sources of data and things available to them, make the business partners or our citizens aware of those. We need to help them tell stories with their data. They need to be able to rapid prototype, do iterative processing of reports and visual presentations so that they can quickly put something together and show it to whoever wants to know this information. They need to be able to integrate with various methods of analysis, and they need to have that facilitation of collaboration. So why now? Why is all of this happening now? Well, we've reached a perfect storm. It's become very disruptive and transformative in regards to the role of the citizen data scientist. And more organizations are, again, doing more advanced predictive and prescriptive analytics. And like I said before, the expert skills of traditional data scientists to address these challenges are often very expensive, very difficult to come by. Citizen data scientists are an effective way to mitigate this current skills gap. And technology is the key enabler of the rise of the citizen data scientist. Technology has gotten easier for non-specialists to use. I asked several people on Twitter about a month ago, do they think Tableau is a coding tool? And 2/3 of the people felt that a Tableau desktop user, a person who uses Tableau desktop, they would not consider a coder. It could be anybody that uses it. So I thought that was kind of an interesting number. And again, we are extending the reach to incorporate analytics and BI tools. We have what I refer to as augmented analytics, where we're using machine learning, we're automating data prep like Tableau prep and Alteryx, insight discovery, and data science. Like I said, Gartner predicts by the year 2020, citizen data scientists will be doing more of the advanced analytic work for whether it's government or whether it's businesses by the year 2020. So that's a little over a year away. And a vast amount of the analysis produced by citizen data scientists will feed and impact the business, which will give us a more pervasive analytics-driven environment. And this is the key part, and this is where some people get a little touchy, is they will support or supplement or complement the data scientists who can then be shifted to their focus onto handling the more complex problems that require those more advanced skills. And this is a quote from a research director at Gartner I thought was interesting. Most organizations don't have enough data scientists consistently available throughout the business, but they do have plenty of skilled information analysts that could become citizen data scientists. Most of our business community know how to use Tableau, SSRS, other tools, and they're very sophisticated at it. So, they are what I would call the skilled information analyst, and equipped with the proper tools, they can also perform intricate diagnostic analysis and create models that leverage predictive or prescriptive analytics. Think back of the lioness and fox story I told about diagnostic. That's after you have a report and you analyze it and make interpretations from that, or do things that are more predictive or prescriptive. Okay, so I want to tell you a true story, and this is actually a very interesting true story. A few years ago, about 1.5 million people participated in brain research over the internet. Scientists realized there's this huge untapped army of people that could solve scientific problems. So they thought, who would be good candidates to recruit for what they had? And they had a very brilliant idea. Who has more time, more skills, or more addictive tendencies than gamers? So molecular biologists were facing a challenging problem because of what they do. They construct proteins, which are these complex 3D structures. And these structures actually look a lot like video games, but they're hard work. It's time consuming, and computers aren't necessarily that great at it. And they were trying to use these proteins to solve some issues with HIV, and they worked for 10 years and they couldn't solve this 3-dimensional protein structure model they were working on. So somebody said, let's make it a video game. So they put it on a site called Foldit, and I'm going to show you that here. So they basically put it out here, and in 3 weeks, video gamers solved this protein problem. And it was just like any other video game. You first go through a training session. They teach you to understand what the protein is in the pieces and how you can move things around and add things and twist things. They have a leaderboard, who's leading in this game, and how people are interacting. And so again, they worked for 10 years. Gamers solved it in three weeks. So now Foldit is being used by other scientists to try to solve problems with other diseases. And, they're now being able to cure disease by playing video games, which probably is a little more worthwhile than playing something like Call of Duty. Some of you may argue if Call of Duty may be more interesting to you. But, the next time you're sitting at, your dinner table and your kids are there and, they're tapping on their phones, and, you sit there, kids, let's put the phones down. Let's have, family time and some conversation during dinner. And then your kids kind of turn and look at you and say, Dad, I'm curing cancer. So how do we create citizen data scientists? So us folks in IT have a little bit of a responsibility here. Few people are likely to become data scientists on their own. I mean, some people are born with an interest in it, and usually they join the profession. They go into become a professional data scientist, or they go into IT. But most people don't pay that much attention to the intricacies of data analysis and tools. People are probably more interested in scanning and looking at things like alien life, Area 51, or who's out in space, and they're committed to that. But citizen scientists usually require some encouragement and education before they can begin working with data, and that's where our responsibility comes in. So we need to cultivate citizen data scientists, whether they're employees, customers, or in my case, the citizens in my community. We need to make data open. We at the city, our GIS team has prepared spatial data that's up on our city website that people could download. We have open data. Again, we have to show a lot of transparency being a government agency, so you can download this data, manipulate it in whatever tools you have. You always, of course, when you put this data up there, you need to keep data privacy and compliance and needs in mind. You don't want to put PII or HIPAA data out there. You need to educate. Not everybody needs to know Hadoop and R, but there are people out there that are opportunities for us that we could teach Tableau Desktop, we could teach Tableau Prep, Alteryx, Power BI. Again, we have people in our organization that use SSRS. You want to offer incentives. People that find errors in the data, have some kind of award for that. Give them incentives. Every Halloween, I do a Halloween trivia contest. And last Halloween, I took a data set and I gave it to people and said, so how can you tell by looking at this data that this company committed fraud? And basically, a lot of people within the city played. I give out 3 bags of candy every Halloween to the top 3 winners. And people were able to solve the problem. I had to give some hints along the way. It has to do with some math theory, but nonetheless, people were engaged. People were interested because it was something relatable. We're interested in, if we're looking at financial data and there might be some kind of fraud to it, how would we be able to detect that? So that's a kind of an incentive. You have to have strong data governance. Again, if you're going to put the data in front of people, you need to, as IT, it's your responsibility to make sure that the data is handled properly. Data ethics are followed, to help them out, and make data operations easy. Working with data requires some amount of skill, okay? But automate as much of it as possible. Again, going back to the lioness at the end, the fox dug some holes and the prey fell into the pits and saved them a lot of work. So same thing here, take a lot of that difficult part out of it, make it easier for them. So how can IT help support the citizen data scientists? We can provide flexibility with the methodologies we file, broaden access to the variety of data sources we use, simplify query and analysis tasks, provide a robust palette of graphs and charts for effective data visualization. I love Lindsay's presentation she gave earlier. Set up roadmaps, set up style guides, color guides, provide an environment where you develop, collaborate, and integrate with the citizens and your business partners, and basically do everything you can, make it as flexible for them to be enabled. So I want to briefly talk about how Tableau can help. And Mamet Vanley, who's a sales consultant for Tableau in Australia, did a presentation at TC18. I believe he did it out in the main area. And I just want to show a couple things he did that have to relate to Citizen Data Scientist. This is the title slide from his presentation. So he talks about Tableau can help in 3 areas: data exploration, statistical modeling, and teaming up for advanced analytics. Here was an example. He made this margin plot. It has histogram, it has a scatter plot, it has a box plot in it, and as you interact with one of them, it changes the other one, so you're getting to see fields in a variety of different ways. He also, again, Tableau has a great, in way of calculated fields, a great group of functions like correlation. Here in the example I show, people that bought binders or binder accessories had a high probability of buying storage and organization supplies, and when you hover over, you see a Vision tooltip that shows that correlation. Clustering, what if we were a wine business and we want to target for our next Pinot campaign? What are the characteristics of our customers? You could take the data and the transactions, you could start manipulating it. You could use k-means is one way of looking at this. And then, of course, you then have your results. Cluster 1, we found our Pinot lovers and what months they typically buy the most, and what countries the wines are from, the sparkling drinkers, champagne, and such. Again, which ones, the countries and the months, and then small buyers. People just buy a couple bottles of wine a year, and this tells us what those wines are. And finally, teaming up for advanced analytics. Tableau offers some awesome integrations with other tools like R and Python and MATLAB, other in-data analytics, SQL Server, Oracle, Google, export like Alteryx, SAS, LavaStorm, and then of course extensions for Tableau like Data Robot and Automated Insights. And by the way, if you go to, I'll go back a slide for a second, if you go on YouTube and watch Mamet's presentation, he shows examples of all these and the integration of the tools. I highly recommend you watch it if you're interested in these types of integrations. So that was my presentation. I give you all of the sources I used, links where I had them to the various resources I used. I provide you my contact information. As Emily mentioned earlier, I do have a DataViz blog. I just updated my, I have a little arrow here that points down my favorite data visualization blogs. I just in the last couple of weeks have updated it. I have 130 out there, data visualization blogs. I want to show you that real quickly. If I could do this right. So this is my data visualization blog. This is this menu item here. And I just added 2 today. I'm going to add some more. I have now 132 out here. I just added today, after Steve Fenn spoke, I added Tessellation, and I added Eugenia's blog site. Eugenia has a one within her work within her works. And these are just some of the people whose blogs I have out here. On my blog site, I have just published yesterday an interview with R.J. Andrews, Info We Trust. Guys that are well known in the interview, Kevin and Ken and Ann, who's been on the call today, Mark, Bradburn, Sarah, other people within the community. I'm sorry if I'm forgetting some names. Lindsay's on there, but these are just some of the people. There's 132. I'm hoping by the end of the year to have 150 out here. There's other ones I have on my kind of a checklist of blogs to visit. And again, if you go to my main page, you'll see interviews like with RJ, and here I talk about the sites. I also just did an interview with Josh Tapley and other stories. So that is my presentation on the rise of citizen data scientists. I think you'll see more and more of our citizens within our community, within our business environments, instead of being so dependent on IT, being able to do things in a more of a self-service manner to answer their questions.
Michael, thank you so much. That was great, and also thanks for going into this too. I saw something from Kathy Bridges put something out there just talking about the beauty of curated blog catalogs. So you definitely definitely hit the nail on the head there. I also just thanks a lot for the interviews too. I'm a big fan of the interviews. I've watched a number of them, and really like those.
Okay, it doesn't look like there were any questions.
Not coming through, but let's give the audience just a few moments to get them out there. Sometimes they come a little bit later too. So
okay, yeah, it was interesting when I posted about a month ago that I was going to speak on this. I got some pushback. Not from necessarily the Tableau community, I'll say from the Twitter community. There are a lot of people that are sensitive. A lot of people spend a lot of time and money, going through getting their education and years of work to get the title of a data scientist, and then referring to a citizen as data scientist. One guy said, I think that's a stupid idea, calling them that, and that was he wrote as a thing. And, ultimately, the citizens who are curious about the data, or your business partners that are curious about their data, and they manipulate it. Let's say they use Tableau or they use other tools, and they mine the data, they dig deeper, and they try to understand things. Granted, they're not doing things like the advanced data scientists are, but a lot of the characteristics of what they do is a data scientist.
It's really interesting on how it's become a lot more prevalent. It's also it's funny to know data scientists and to kind of see their impression of all this. And I would say I caught the same vibe from them as choose.
Well, it's kind of funny. Everybody kind of understands what a data scientist is, and we understand what they do. But if you ask somebody if they know one, they say no. Because now we're seeing a lot of degree programs. We're seeing a lot of a lot more companies giving that title out. I just wrote a 2-part article that hopefully, Wayne has it. Wayne Eckerson from the Eckerson Group has it, and hopefully he will be publishing that fairly soon. But it's a 2-part article. The first part talks about what data science is, and what data science and data scientist scientist is. And the second part talks about the various skill sets. And I had several people review this. I had Ken review it. I had Mark Bradburn. I had Bridget Cogley, several other people who've reviewed it for me, and I wanted to pass it by some people to get their opinions. And we all came up with the same consensus, of the skills and the kind of things we think people need to be a citizen data scientist. It looks like there is one question. Let me take a look at that.
One quick question, yes.
Heather Johnson. Hi, Heather. This is an important topic. We are all citizens. How do we as citizens garner respect for the data, if not for ourselves? It seems like the data isn't trusted just because I present it. Also, I'm a woman. Yes, that's two of the problems, is that we need to respect our women coworkers and women in the field of IT and analytics more. And just because, whether she says it or I say it, it's the same thing being said with the same data. So there should be respect for the person presenting that and believing them. Data is hard, because working with data as I do, if you make a mistake and it gets to the business and and they say, well, you made a mistake, this is wrong, or this calculation's wrong. Next time they're going to look at you a little more with a stink eye, whether they're going to trust what you said. So we are in that kind of a mode where you have to always be perfect with the data. You have to double check and check, run it by another person, go back with it, go forward with it. Again, going back to Lindsay, she talked about making it a data viz. Then you go to the end of it, and then you work backwards. Same thing with data. Go back to the beginning and work forward. Go from the end and work backwards. How did you get there? We need to know the data lineage. We need to be able to explain how we came to that and be able to persuade. It's a very difficult thing. They need to, now respect the data. Again, it depends where your data sources are. If they come from, for example, we use Tyler Munis as our financial system. And so the data that comes out of there, we have to trust as once it's entered, is true. But then again, humans are entering it and humans are fallible. So there could be mistakes because of that. And, that causes some difficulties in that. But I think the more you show them data that provides them insights, they can make that data actionable, the more they'll respect that data and the more they'll come to you to ask more questions. I don't know if I answered your question or just talked in circles, but hopefully, Heather, I answered your question.
No, Michael, there was one more question there, but
yeah,
if you could go ahead and just answer it in the Q&A box. It looks like a pretty good one.